In this episode, I'm asking a city councillor some pretty tough questions. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 6 of the Why Orillia show. Today I am here with my esteemed, well-known guest, Mason Ainsworth. Thank you for being on the show today,
Thanks
Mason.
for having me.
So let's get right into it. You're a fairly well-known guy, and we know you as Mason Ainsworth. Your tagline is Ainsworth in Action. You're currently a city councillor running for re-election. Tell us a little bit about this Ainsworth in Action, who you are and what you stand for.
Well, a big thing with the Ainsworth in Action timeline, or not the timeline, sorry, but the hashtag is to kind of show the timeline.
Okay.
So you can go on and you can click on Ainsworth in Action. You can actually see what I've been up to over the past 4 years. So anything from fundraisers or events or important articles or something going on in the community, I've tried to link that in so people can go back and look at that timeline, so to speak.
It's really cool with social media how you can do certain things like that. Now, speaking of social media, you're on social media quite a bit. I see you all the time. You're in the news all the time. You seem to be, you don't need much of an introduction. I wanted to take this opportunity to get to know you as a person as well as you as a city councillor. What's one thing that we can tell the people of Orillia that they may be surprised to find out about you?
That's a tough one. I'd like to say I'm pretty above board with most things, and I do post a lot on social media, but there are definitely certain things that I don't post. For instance, I like to get out a lot and hike in Scout Valley.
Okay.
That's a nice one for me, and usually it's not a super popular time, so a lot of people don't see me out, but my fiance and I like to go and get out in the outdoors, and we usually keep that kind of to ourselves for the most part. She posts about it sometimes on Facebook,
right.
But I'm not one to post those personal family things.
Very cool. It's nice to see that you've got a balance of things that are out there and things that aren't out there. So I promised myself that we do have, you call it a man of the people, but somebody who's who's involved politically in our city. I wanted to ask you some rapid fire questions. No cheating. You have one sentence, one word. Okay. Keep the answer short. We're just going to go rapid fire through a few questions. What is the most underrated part of Orillia?
The underrated part, I would say, are forest in regards to Scout Valley. Tying that into, I like to go there a lot, and it's something that's not really highlighted. You don't really see out in the media, and you don't see it in a lot of our promotional materials.
Very good. What is the most overrated part of Orillia?
The most overrated part. That is a tough one that could get you into some trouble. I know one that people might get upset with, for sure. And I know, especially in the last couple of years, there's been a lot of excitement around Gordon Lightfoot, for example. And I think he's done a phenomenal job, and he has a lot of great history in Orillia. But on the other side, when you talk about artists such as him, who are so large and so big, you actually miss out sometimes on a lot of our local artists. And I've personally met a whole bunch throughout the community, and a lot of them don't get into the newspaper or don't get plaques of them, and we're hoping that they do one day.
Right.
But I'd love to see a lot more attention just on the local folks who are a little less known, because that could help catapult them to that level of success in the future.
Very, very interesting. What's your favorite view in Orillia?
My favorite view is in Tudhope Park, actually. And if you walk all the way through the trail right out, there's this statue of Gordon Lightfoot. So if you go a few feet from that, there's one particular spot, and you can look in pretty much every direction, and you're surrounded by water. So I would say it's the area in Orillia where you're the most surrounded by water, and I think it's such a nice area because it's not on an island, and it's also very quiet. You don't get a lot of traffic through there, other than people on bicycles and roller skates and such. But if you go out through the off hours in the day that aren't the prime time, it's a nice area where you can just go and you can sit down and you can close your eyes and you can just listen. And you don't hear a lot of stuff going on other than maybe some birds on the water and some of the nature around you, which is kind of cool.
Very nice. It sounds, I'm picturing being there right now. What is a pet peeve for Mason Ainsworth?
There's definitely a few pet peeves. I'd say a huge one for me is littering.
Okay.
And if you wanted to get into specific types of littering, I would definitely say cigarette butts. I have some friends who smoke, and they've definitely heard me out them a few times for making sure that gets into the garbage.
I never cared about cigarette butts until I got a puppy. And then I really cared about cigarette butts because it's something that if you're just sort of walking aimlessly through life, you don't see it, and then when you're looking down all the time, for me it was my puppy, but when you're looking down all the time, it's this really gross thing that's everywhere. Speaking of trash, very nice segue into our next question. I see you on social media. I don't know if it's quarterly, annually, whatever. I seem to see you on social media with your Team Ainsworth, your nice bright yellow shirts out there cleaning up trash. So first of all, as a citizen of Orillia, thank you for doing that. I want to ask you, in our last rapid fire question, when you're out there picking up garbage, are you pleasantly surprised at the lack of garbage, or are you a little bit discouraged at the abundance of garbage?
I wouldn't say I'm discouraged about the abundance of garbage. I'd say I'm more encouraged by how much garbage there is, and it really shows that there is a need for that in the community to get out there. And we always try to encourage more folks to get out, whether it's through our team or through other groups, and make sure they make an impact. But also on the proactive side, just saying, hey, don't throw down your cigarette butts, don't throw out your, Tim Hortons garbage. And if you see somebody doing that, I know it can be awkward at times, but go up to them and say, hey, I think you dropped this, because I think that personal responsibility is important. And when you bring that up, even though it might be awkward, it can make the difference between them doing it another time or not.
Start some fights in Orillia. So, like any good man of the people, you are running for re-election. I actually just moved into your ward, and you are running for re-election in Ward 3. So I wanted to help you use this Why Orillia platform and our audience to have 30, 40 seconds, whatever amount of time you need. Tell us what you'd like to, what would you like to communicate to our audience today?
Okay. Well, the most important thing to me is really 3 items. And that is what I ran on the last time, and which I'll be running on again. And those are to be approachable, to be accountable, and to be hardworking. And the big thing with the approachable one being first. It's always great to be able to go and talk to your representatives and say, I have an issue, I have a concern, I have an idea, and be able to go and find them and be able to communicate some of that information. And then there's the accountability factor, which is being accountable to your constituents and to your decisions. So when you do make a decision, and the reality in politics is sometimes you make tough decisions, but you need to be able to express those and say, this is the reasoning and this is the information why I made this decision, and explain that to people. And then the hardworking part kind of links into what we talked about earlier, which is the Ainsworth in action and getting out, being involved within the community, which also gives people an opportunity to come and to approach you. So it all kind of links together, those 3 things, and it's about getting out there and being involved in the community and listening to your constituents, because at the end of the day, that's what public representatives should be, are people who listen to the people.
Wow, amazing. I have goosebumps. Yeah. and it's the truth, and that's what we, the people, what we want and what we need, and quite frankly what they deserve. And so I appreciate you saying that. And so the last question I'm going to ask you, and it's a question that we ask everybody on this show, is why Orillia? Why did you choose to live here? Why do you love Orillia? Why do you specifically work so hard for Orillia? What about Orillia is it that does it for Mason Ainsworth?
Oh, where to start on that one? It's difficult, but a big thing first. So I grew up in Orillia, so I've seen a lot of different aspects of it growing up. Some of the positives, some of the negatives, and it all kind of rolled into one. And then I've also had many friends who have lived abroad or lived in other countries who have come here and have kind of told me their stories about what's important in Orillia. My own personal thing, I would say the people, and I know that's something that's corny, but it's always been something that's been very supportive of me and my family growing up and helping us through some tough times, as well as the ability now to go to post-secondary education, whether it's through Georgian College or Lakehead University. When I was finishing up high school and I was looking for a place to go and to get more educated for the future, I looked at a whole bunch of different options. I had opportunities to go to multiple universities across the province, even looked at some outside of the province. But the big thing that stuck out of my mind, and it was somebody handed me Lakehead University, and it said, "Your adventure starts here." And I never really heard of Lakehead before that, and I said, I'm going to look into this, and decided to go there. And one of the bigger reasons is the low student-prof ratio. So in my first political science class, now being an elected official and taking classes, my first political science class, we had 9 people in it.
Wow.
So the interaction I got with my professor was far beyond, I think, what most people ever get in their education careers. And I think it's something that's really helped shape me. And it's something that's kept me in this community and has kept me, advocating to keep more reasons to keep people in Orillia, and especially keep young people here, whether it's through education or whether it's through jobs, more living wage jobs and opportunities to bring people in, which is why I'm so excited for things such as the Bell announcement that we briefly chatted about, bringing high-end fiber here for the future, for the jobs of tomorrow, so that we can say to our young people, hey, a lot of these jobs aren't created yet, but we're bringing in the infrastructure that's needed so that you can work here in the future. So even if you want to go off to school, you have a place to come back and work at in the future.
That's been a theme that we've addressed so many times in all of, in the first 5 episodes, and something that's been a theme in my life is this whole concept of a lot of people in Orillia, and rightfully so, decide after high school they'd like to move away, they'd like to experience something new, and whether it's creating infrastructure so that A, they don't have to leave, or B, that they have something to come back to when they inevitably, like in my case, decide to move back, there's opportunities and there's a thriving community and economy. So Mason, thank you so much. It means the world that you'd be on this show, and to talk about your experience in Orillia and why you love it so much. So I wanted to thank you again.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate it.